It's so cold. This apple cinnamon tea is doing wonders to keep me warm. Hey friends, I'm so excited for today's video because today we are going book shopping. The plan is to visit Richmond, which is one of my favorite areas to go book shopping because they have a lot of independent bookshops that are so beautiful. One of my favorite children's bookshop is located there as well. It's called the Alligator's Mouth and I've featured it once before on my channel, I think in a video in February or something like that, so I haven't been in a while. They always seem to have a really great selection of middle grade books that I've never ever seen before, and they feature a lot of new ones that are coming out. So I'm really excited to take a browse and see what's new in the children's book market. I'm really looking forward to visit that particular bookshop, and I'll probably end up visiting the Waterstones in Richmond as well because that's just a lovely building and I can't ever resist Waterstones. Because it's been absolutely freezing here, I've been really in the mood to pick up my winter books and just read lots of books with snowy atmospheres and the cold, and reading about lots of gorgeous white wonderlands. So one book that I'm really looking forward to picking up today is The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke, who of course wrote Piranesi and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So I'm really looking forward to that book. It's a new short story by her and it's all Christmas related, so it's perfect for this holiday season. I've also been enjoying the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber and I've just finished book 1, so I definitely want to pick up book 2, which is called Legendary, I believe. On top of that, my husband and I are planning on visiting Kew later in the day, so Kew also has an independent bookshop and I always love taking a good browse there, so yeah, that's also on the agenda for today. Since the sun goes down around 3 p.m. now in England, I really need to make my way before it gets dark because I want to make the most of today. I hope you're all ready for the book shopping at Book Haul. I'm so excited. I hope you all have a warm beverage like some tea or hot chocolate to keep you company and keep you all cozy as we start today's video. So my husband and I made our way to Kew, which is about a 40-minute drive from where we live, and it was a really lovely drive where we enjoyed the late autumn foliage along the way. When we arrived, we realised that Kew were having a small Christmas market taking place all down the high street, so we explored a few of the stores where we came across this adorable little dog hanging out in a basket with a warm blanket on top. But whilst my husband did a bit of work at a nearby cafe, I spent some time looking at the children's bookshops at the Kew bookshop, and I actually ended up coming across a couple of new titles that I didn't know were being published. One of them being this middle grade fantasy called Chronicles of Weatherwhy by Anna James, which features seasonal magic, and I wanted to purchase this book so badly, but I did want to wait for the paperback edition to come out next year because you guys know that I love paperbacks. But I ended up coming across the audiobook on Everand later, and it's so incredible. I can't wait to buy a physical copy of it soon. And although I was interested in a few other books as well, I decided to make my way over to Richmond before it got too dark and see what other books were available as well. It was only a 10-minute journey, and when I got off the tube, it was really lovely walking down the high street with all the Christmas lights adorning the darkening sky. And before I knew it, I was standing in front of the Alligator's Mouth, admiring its beautiful shop front. They genuinely have the cutest window art which they update each season, so I enjoy seeing what new piece of art has been drawn every time I visit it. Like I mentioned in the intro, the Alligator's Mouth bookshop is one of my favourite children's bookshops, and I love spending lots of time seeing what kind of new picture books are out in the picture book section. But my favourite space in the bookshop is towards the back, where it extends into all the middle grade books, as well as a couple YA and adult books too. Because it's been so cold here, I've been feeling a very big desire to read lots of wintry books with snowy atmospheres, and so as a seasonal reader, I really love that the Alligator's Mouth always have a dedicated space to showcase their seasonally appropriate reads. They also have a great graphic novel selection, so I really wanted to pick some of the new ones up from this book shopping trip, including Garlic and the Witch, which is a sequel to Garlic and the Vampire, but I couldn't find it anywhere, and since I already have one or two graphic novels at home that I still haven't read, I thought I'd hold back on purchasing more until I finished the ones from my current TBR. Next up, I walked a little further down to pop by the Richmond Waterstones, where I realised that they'd updated their exterior because I believe it used to be black and now they've updated it to white paint, and for some reason it made me really excited. Anyways, I went in intentionally looking for some books that took place during winter or explore some sort of cold atmosphere, and I found lots that I really wanted to buy, like If on a Winter's Night by Calvino, although I don't actually know if it's set during winter or if the title is just seasonally appropriate. But as I was exploring the different aisles and the floors, I really struggled to choose between the books because there were so many to choose from. On a separate day, I also visited a different Waterstones, and I thought I'd include some of the books that I came across during that particular trip as well in this video. Overall, the book shopping trip went a little bit unexpectedly because my initial plans were to buy as many books from the indie bookshops as possible, and whilst there were lots that interested me, especially on hindsight, there weren't any particular books that screamed at me to purchase them for some reason in the moment. I think having recently come out of a book buying ban, it's helped me to become even more intentional about which books I'm buying and where I'm spending my money. And I guess I didn't want to regret any of the books that I did purchase on a whim, so even though lots of books did end up catching my eye, and I do hope to get to those books sometime in the future, I was very particular and mindful about the books that I ended up leaving the bookshops with. So I held back during the day and ended up buying most, if not all of the books I think from Waterstones, because they not only had some titles that I'd had on my mind for a while, but also, especially because they had a double and triple plus point stamp deal going on over Black Friday, and I had enough credits to get one book for free. I had a really lovely time, and I just really appreciate and love spending a couple of hours in a day to dedicate it to book shopping and exploring new books. I'm just so happy in bookshops. If you've bought any books recently, I'd love to know which one you bought. I've got all the books that I bought with me, and it's actually the day after I went book shopping, but I wanted to make sure that I share these books with you all. So here's my stack of books that I acquired from the bookshops, and the very first book that I bought, in no particular order actually, was Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is of course book 2 in the Caraval series. I recently read Caraval, and I really enjoyed the first book, so I was like, yes, of course, I need to buy the second book and carry on. I think I've been craving books with magic and something that just feels super whimsical, and Caraval just really itched that spot for me. I'm quite late to the party, so I'm sure a lot of you already have read it or know about this book series, but in case you're like me and you're late to the party, this book follows a girl called Scarlett and also her sister Donatella. Scarlett and Donatella live with a very abusive father, and ever since she was little, Scarlett has dreamt of being invited to this magical event that takes place called Caraval, and it takes place once a year or something like that. But what's really special is that the guests who are invited are allowed to participate and be a part of the entire show. The guests are warned beforehand not to get too swept away by the magic of everything, and so when Scarlett is invited, she's over the moon and really eager to go and participate in the show. However, when she gets there, it seems like things are a lot more sinister and cruel and unexpected in comparison to what she'd been conceiving and imagining of ever since she was young. I haven't read like a YA fantasy in a while, and I haven't really been in the mood to pick up any particular YA fantasies actually until I came across Caraval, because I think I wanted something that revolved around like a game sort of atmosphere with again lots of whimsical magic as well. So yeah, I picked up book 2 and I'm excited to finish this legendary book because yeah, it follows Donatella in this particular one as well. Like I mentioned before, this is in really no particular order, but next up we have Orbital by Samantha Harvey, which of course won the Booker Prize this year. I was really struck when I picked it up at the bookshop. I was just reading the summary and also the first couple of pages, and I realized just how mesmerizing and it's just very beautifully written. But Orbital follows 6 different astronauts who are traveling in their spacecraft and just traveling around Earth. Their objective there is to collect meteorological data and lots of different scientific observations, but ultimately, I think it's really a book about their different observations on human life, what being in space, rotating around Earth from such a distance has, what kind of impact it's had on the ways that they observe and think about human fragility and frailty and about how precious life is. I feel like it's going to be a very sweet meditation on life and some of life's questions and the purpose of living. As a Christian, I do love being reminded of how much of a gift life is and human relationships and friendships and just how precious this life is that we've been given by God. And I just love being reminded of how small we are, how big the world is, and yet how precious we each individuals are. I do really seem to enjoy these contemplative kind of nature of books, so I have really high hopes for this one, and it's so short. I'm really looking forward to reading it and hopefully be really soothed by it. This next book is a little bit different, but it's Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. Heather Fawcett's books are so magical to read during winter. I love the stories that she's able to craft. So I've read Ember and the Ice Dragons, I've read the first book in this particular series as well, and both of them have really been uplifting and they have the sweetest characters and character relationships in the stories as well. I know that the first book was very wintry, and I don't really know what this second book is going to be like, if it's going to be set in the same sort of winter landscape or it'll be a different sort of seasonal atmosphere. Anyways, Emily Wilde is a genius scholar of fairy folklore, and she gets into a little bit of an academic rivalry with Wendell Bamblebee, who ends up unexpectedly joining her on her expedition to find out a little bit more about fairies. Book 2 follows on from everything that happened in the first one, and like many of you guys, I thought that Emily and Wendell's relationship was really endearing, so I look forward to carrying on with their relationship in book 2. Although, that being said, what I've noticed actually is that when it comes to sequels for me in series, I like to remember everything freshly, what happened in the first book. So even if I remember, say, like 70, 65, even 80% of a book, I tend to reread the first book before I carry on with the sequel if a couple of months have lapsed in between those, because yeah, I don't want to miss a single detail. If there are any Easter eggs, I don't want to have forgotten anything. So I'm probably most likely actually going to reread the first book before I start this one this winter as well. I have two more books left here, but really the last one's a little bit of a different thing. So the last book that I actually did end up buying was Susanna Clarke's The Wood at Midwinter. Such a gorgeous cover as well. I'm so happy I got my hands on this one, and I've already read it actually because it is very, very short. This is a short story that I'm sure I'll be featuring in my winter book recommendations video. Hopefully that's going to come out the video after the one I'm filming, well, this one right now. But this short story is illustrated so wonderfully by Victoria Sorden. The only book that I've read from Susanna Clarke other than this one now, it was Piranesi or Piranesi. I feel like if I'd read that during a better time in my life, I might have loved it even more. But I remember I was actually reading that whilst I was waiting in the A&E, and I just wasn't feeling very good at all. So yeah, I don't have the best memories associated with that book, but in spite of everything that was going on and the way that I was feeling, I was able to recognize that it was a masterpiece of a book. So yeah, that's why I really wanted to pick up this particular Christmas sort of story that Susanna Clarke came out with this year. But this book follows a girl called Meredith, and Meredith is considered a little bit different from the other people in her village, and she's really only ever happy when she's either with her animals, and she has an entire range of animals from spiders to a pig called Apple, or if she's walking in the middle of the woods. One day, as she's making her rounds in a snowy forest, she ends up coming across an unexpected person that she's never met before, and this strange figure changes her life. This book very much read like a fable to me, and it seems to have a lot of Christian mysticism involved as well, in terms of the allegorical ways that Susanna Clarke depicts or uses and integrates Christian teachings and traditions. So yes, I'm very happy I have that gorgeous copy. And finally, I have Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. Now, this is slightly different from the other, four books that I got from the trip, because I didn't get this from the book shopping trip at all. A couple of weeks ago, I visited the 66 books, which went viral over like Instagram and BookTok. It's in Hemel Hempstead, and so my friend and I visited the warehouse that is 66 books. If you haven't heard of 66 books before, it's like a publishing warehouse. Therefore, all the books they have there are really, really cheap and sold at a discount. When I was there, people were there with huge baskets and suitcases and boxes, but I I only came out with one book, and a very, very thin one at that. I really thought that I would come out with lots more books, but as I was going through all of them, I didn't really feel like I necessarily wanted any of them in particular. They had a lot of books like romances, they had a lot of classics, but I didn't like the editions of the classics that they were selling them in. They had a couple different fantasy novels as well that I already owned copies of, but this book, Snow Country, this stood out to me because it's a classic that's been on my radar for a while now. I'm about 16 pages into the story so far, but it's basically about a man called Shimamura, and he lives in Japan, and he's originally from a very busy city, but he's tired of that sort of lifestyle, and he believes that he's fallen in love with a geisha who lives in rural Japan. So he travels across the country through the snowy mountains into western Japan to be united with her. Geisha is called Komako, and the lifestyle that she lives is very, very different from the life that Shimamura has lived so far. So I don't think it's the easiest of love stories. It's supposed to be a very delicate portrayal of their love and their difficulties in their relationship as well. But since this was a book that I recently acquired, and I don't think I've shared it anywhere, have I? I don't think I have, so I did want to include it in this book haul. These come book shopping with me style of vlogs, and book hauls are some of my favorite to film, so I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that some of these books sound interesting to you as well. I'm gonna sign this video off with a big virtual hug. I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Bye friends!